So once again, we're back talking about every single god in Smite. This time, this video would have been about 40 minutes long, so instead I'm separating it into two parts. This video will cover the first 53 gods, Achilles to Janus, so be on the lookout for part 2 where I'll cover the rest of the gods coming soon. So this is basically my favourite part of every single god's kit and why I like it. If you main any of these gods, then be sure to leave your input down below, as I'm sure there's tons of stuff you love about your mains that I won't mention here. But without further ado, let's get into this with Achilles. Achilles. His passive is very simple yet effective and I really like it. It allows you to play two different playstyles with Achilles. If you're looking to go for more damage, you can go shirtless. If you're wanting that more traditional tanky warrior role, you can get your armor on. It's just a simple yet solid passive. AGNI. His 1, hands down. AGNI's 1 is really what makes his whole kit work, and comboing it with any of his other 3 damaging abilities makes for some really interesting gameplay. AMC. I really enjoy making networks of hives and ensuring enemies can't take them all down at once. I think it's a really cool mechanic that gives an otherwise quite bland kit some spice. APHRODITE. I really like APHRODITE's 3 actually. It's a very unique take on anti-heal since most abilities in the game only reduce healing by a certain percentage, but this ability counters healers in a unique way by stunning enemies, and I like that about it. AMATERASU. This one is tough simply because I love AMATERASU's design so much and all aspects of her kit. I think my overall favourite part though is managing her auras. If you haven't guessed by now, I'm the type of player who likes to min-max and manage things while I play, and I think it makes for a more engaging and fun experience. So Armor's auras are perfect for me. Knowing when to be in power stance and when to be in speed stance, and also when to sacrifice the healing to stay in your current stance, sometimes that is the right play. ANHUR. To probably no one's surprise, the Pillar Impale is my favourite aspect of ANHUR's kit. It's really the only spice that his kit has, and for me it's incredibly satisfying to land that combo as it requires very precise timing and aim, along with a bit of the enemy not seeing it coming to pull it off. ANUBIS. So much like AMA, this one will be difficult, but for a different reason. That being, I really don't like Anubis' kit, and finding something that I like in it is hard. But I guess his passive is pretty cool, given that it's sort of a 3-parter with CCR, bonus lifesteal and protections all built in. I don't know, not much else to say here really. I don't really like Anubis as a design, as unpopular as that statement might be. KUANG. I think my favourite part of KUANG's kit is actually his decoy. Now before you start that comment, hear me out. His decoy actually has a lot of depth to it, and the rest of his kit kind of lacks in my opinion. It can be used as an initiation, though that's not the best use of it, I will admit, disengaging or running away, for extra damage to finish off a kill or jungle camp while in melee range, or even to set up a kill combo with his ultimate, throwing an enemy into the air, setting the decoy on the ground and exploding it when they come down for some big burst damage. I feel like its many uses and overall utility make it a super fun ability to use for me. APHRODITE. I feel like all of Aphro's abilities are just equally decent. None of them really stand out to me, but I think the whole soulmate mechanic, which is more of an overarching theme in her kit, is pretty cool. Having abilities with effects that apply to both her and her soulmate makes for an interesting playstyle that no other god really has, and I like that about her. Apollo. It's his mez, hands down. I don't know what it is about having an almost instant mez that is so satisfying, but I think any Apollo players out there will agree with me in saying that the mez is one of the most fun parts of his kit. Especially when that enemy assassin is on your ass and has no beads to continue chasing you. It's so satisfying. ARACHNE. So ARACHNE is another kit that I really don't enjoy as a whole, but I can give her credit where it's due to her webs. Another ability that sort of has multiple uses within it. ARACHNE's webs can be used for camp clearing and setting up before the game starts, as an engage tool to slow enemies in chase, or even as an escape tool, as the bonus movement speed is really nice when running away. Plus, if you're running through the jungle, you can block off certain pathways with the webs, which stops enemies directly following you through them. This is probably the single aspect of ARACHNE's kit that I actually like, and if she is reworked in the future, I hope they keep them in some form or another. Ares. This one was tough between his chains and his ultimate, but personally, I think of chains more when I think of Ares, so I'm going with that. That whopping 8 second of cripple time and insane damage from a Guardian is really iconic, and makes Ares, well, Ares. ARTEMIS. Once again, this is a close one between the 1 and the ultimate, this time being of course Tusky and the Vine traps. But once again, I think I prefer her traps to her ultimate. Maybe it's just because her ultimate is obviously cool and her traps are low-key cool. The amount of stuff you could do with them is just awesome. Setting up traps is the obvious use for them, but you can also predict enemy movement and place one ahead of them, combo it with other CC such as from your boar or from other teammates, like a Sobek pluck for example. There's so many uses for this fairly simple ability that I find it really interesting to use, even more so back in the day when it had its warding capabilities. ARTIO. Okay, this one is a little sadistic, but I really like Artio's Druid stance too, or her nipple cripple. This is partly due to it being a cool ability since there's not many moving persistent cripples in the game, but it's also partly due to the rage it induces in people when they can't move for 6 seconds straight. Good times for sure. Athena. I wonder which Athena ability is my favourite. Yeah, it's the Taunt. It's one of the best and most impactful abilities in the entire game, and for me is one of the coolest. The sheer power you wield in your hands when you taunt 4 people into a Scylla ultimate makes this hands down the best part of playing Athena. AWILIX. So for me, AWILIX was a really tough one. A lot of aspects of her kit are genuinely cool and unique, and choosing a single favourite part of it is extremely difficult. For me though, I really like the feather step mostly for the immunity frames you get during the animation. Dodging abilities like Vulcan's Magma Bomb with this is really something you have to get used to, but it's my favourite part of her kit. BACCHUS. So for BACCHUS, I think his flop is the highlight of his kit. The pure power of engaging with a belly flop makes it really fun to play with, especially since it's a knock-up and can't be cleansed unless you beat it early. BAKASURA. It's Eat Minion. The ability allows BAKASURA some ridiculous jungling options with fast clear, sustain, and even safe invades, as he can easily outsecure literally any other jungler in the early game and heal off of it, plus charging that ultimate for some big damage later on. Baron Samedi. For Baron, I think it's the sheer power of his 2. This one takes the cake as my favourite part of his kit. Not only does it do solid damage in a good AoE, it also heals you and nearby allies, and gives slow immunity and movement speed if the target is at the Hysteria threshold. Just a really solid and fun ability to use in my opinion. BASTET. Another kit I don't really like very much, but I do quite like her Pounce ability. Simply for the fact that you can return to the place you jumped from, which makes it a bit more interesting than your typical jump and damage ability. Bellona. So, as some of you may know, Bellona is my favourite god ever, and choosing a single thing about her from the multitude of stuff that makes her amazing is tough. But for me, I think her weapon switching mechanics are the best part of her kit. It's so fun to have the right weapon for the situation. Need fast wave clear early on? Get out the hammer. Need to box late game ADC? Use sword and shield. It's extremely unique and no other god has access to anything like it, which makes me choose it as the best part of Bellona's kit. CABRAKAN. So Cab's 1 is just funny as hell, especially if you want to meme around with it and build Polynomicon and Soul Reaver on one-shot squishies. But even in a normal-ish build, it's just funny. I mean, look at that, you can't tell me that's not amusing, or terrifying I guess if you're on the receiving end of it. CAMAZOTZ. So Kama has quite a few unique things about him that I like, even though I don't really like his kit as a whole, but personally I think his ultimate is pretty fun, especially with its tower diving capabilities. CERBERUS. Definitely his 2. It does way too much damage and slows for way more than it has business slowing for. What's not to love? For CHRONOS, it's the 1. The rest of his kit I find relatively boring, but the depth that comes with choosing which form to be in on the 1 for the right situation makes it really fun to use. So CHAAC is my least favourite warrior because I feel he's very linear in how he plays and can't really be mixed up based on the situation, but the whole dynamic of throwing the axe then baiting people into chasing you and TPing away is a pretty fun mind game to play with people. CHANG'E. So any CHANG'E mains out there can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think her ultimate is the most fun part of her kit, simply due to the insane ceiling on what it can be capable of. If you stun one person for 1 second, it's very meh, but if you hit 3 people for example, that's 1 second, 2 second and 3 second stuns respectively for a total of 6 seconds of stun time. That's pretty insane. CHERNOBOG. So Cherno is one of my least favourite gods ever, probably bottom 3, but the wall dash I will admit is pretty cool. Frustrating as hell to play against for sure, but to use is really nice, since you can quickly hide in a wall to immune something like a Zeusel or any big damage ability really. Chiron. The fact that his 1 cleanses is a highly underrated and cool part of his kit in my opinion, definitely my favourite overall. CHRONOS. Surprisingly, I think his 1 is my favourite. As much as I would like to say the 2 for the depth and complexity that it has, I feel the small AoE but high damage and low cooldown of the 1 makes it pretty skill testing to use, especially if you're trying to hit it raw with no CC. But speaking of, it does also combo really nicely with his 3 and other teammates' CC. Cuchulainn. Obviously it's his passive and the whole rage mode thing. It's what makes the god unique, and without it he'd be a boring generic warrior. CUPID. I like his hearts actually, simply because it's something you don't typically see on a hunter ability. Something that does no damage and is often used to support your team instead of yourself. AGNI. As more of an overarching theme rather than a specific ability, I like Daji's focus on tick damage. It fits really well with her lore and design that she slowly watches you die of bleeds and tick damage from her passive, 1, 2 and ultimate all at once. Very thematic. Discordia. Definitely the double madness she can get on her 2. It's very unexceptional if you just land a root on one person, but you're rewarded handsomely for hitting multiple enemies with this and positioning correctly, allowing you to follow up with her 1 for a true combo, or just let your other teammates pummel them into the ground. ERLANG SHEN. Another one of my favourite gods, but this one is not hard to choose at all. The 72 transformations is easily my favourite part of Erlang's kit, and it's a huge reason why I love him so much. The modular nature of the ability where you can choose for a more aggressive or defensive route with it is just awesome to play with. FAFNIR. So I would say I like his transforming mechanic, but I actually don't. The physical way he transforms and de-transforms I think is pretty trash. So I'm going to go with his 2, in both forms actually, since this is a great way to burn objectives, siege, or end the game. It's quite a unique way to support your team that not many Guardians have access to. Especially in Dragon form though, a full coerce boosted team can shred a Phoenix in 5 seconds flat. Fenrir. The 2 I feel is severely underrated, especially after the changes to it that means it gives 80 power and 35% lifesteal for 6 seconds without needing to consume runes. That's pretty insane. Freya. Freya's whole mechanic of switching between melee and ranged is really cool, I think. A few other gods like Ula for example have this, but I think Freya does it really well. Even if she has had balance problems for basically her entire existence, I still think she's a very cool god. Ganesha. Even though the Shake and Bake is dead, I do still enjoy doing 6,000 damage with a Ganesha roll and one-shotting people. It's pretty fun if you haven't tried it. Geb. 2 words. Stone Shield. Need I say more? I think not. Guan Yu. The fact that you can cancel Guan's horse immediately is really fun, I think. Being able to mount up and then play mind games with the enemies on when you're going to jump off the horse and use the stun adds some really nice depth to the ability in my opinion. Hachiman. Simply having the extra range on his 1 is a really cool mechanic that I think isn't explored enough in Smite. As far as I know, only Hachi and X-Bal have this mechanic as far as ranged auto attacks go, and I'd like to see it a bit more in game. Hades. Giving people the good suck with his ultimate is pretty fun. Hebo. Speaking of ultimates, Hebo has many of them. I like that. Heimdall. So he's pretty new as of recording this video, but I do like the long-range teleport mechanics with his crystals quite a lot. Not many gods have that type of global mobility in the same way. Hel. I know this one is probably what everyone will say, but I really like Hel's Cleanse. It's difficult to use but very rewarding if you get it right, which in my opinion is great ability design. Hera. I really like Hera's 1, simply because it flips minions into each other. There's just something satisfying about clearing waves with this ability that I really like. Hercules. So I would say his dance emote, but this video is about the god's kit and not about his dance emotes, so I'm going to go with Mitigate Wounds, simply because of the insane shit you can pull off with it. Healing for like 1500 if you take enough damage is hella fun. Horus. So similar to Hera, Horus's 2 is just so satisfying to use. Something about it being a 2-parter ability makes it really fun to land, especially when you can hit one target with the stun and then cleave minions or a different target. Huyi. Yeah, it's hitting triple bounces, what else did you expect? Hunbats. Another easy one. Bat's ultimate is one of my favourite abilities in the game due to the fact that it can pretty much solo carry a teamfight if used the right way. The Egyptian goddess of magic. So I liked her silence before, and after the changes it just got better. Definitely my favourite part of her kit. Izanami. So while her auto attacks are very unique, I actually don't like the way they work. However, I do like her ultimate. It's another one of those hard to land but very rewarding abilities that I feel is really good to use. And finally for part 1 we have Janus. Yeah, to no one's surprise, it's his portal mechanics, both in his 1 and his ultimate. Being able to move around the map in that way, not just for him but also for his team, is just so much fun to use and play with. It's always a pleasure to have a Janus on my team, and this is why. So that's it for part 1 of this video, because as you can probably tell if you've watched all the way to the end, this is a very long one. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss part 2 coming soon, where I'll cover the rest of the roster from Jingwei to Zhonghui and what I love about them most. Have a great day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out, you nerds.